My name is Claude, and at 67 years old I thought I knew my son Thomas better than anyone. After losing my wife to cancer and selling our family home, I temporarily moved in with him, expecting the same love and respect I had always shown my own parents. Instead, one evening, my son exploded at me, demanding I stop living off him and find a job or move out immediately. The shock and betrayal cut deeper than any pain I had ever known. Little did he know that my response would change our family forever. Before I share this heartbreaking story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that subscribe button to learn how I taught my ungrateful son a valuable lesson about respect and the true meaning of family. For 40 years, I dedicated my life to building America. As a civil engineer, I designed and supervised construction of bridges across this great country, from the winding roads of Vermont to the coastal highways of California. My work wasn't glamorous, but it was honest and fulfilling. I took pride in creating structures that would connect communities and stand the test of time. Through careful saving and wise investments, I built a secure financial foundation for my family along the way. My wife Martha was my rock throughout those years. We met in college, married young, and weathered life's storms together for nearly 4 decades. She was the most compassionate person I'd ever known, always putting others first, especially our son Thomas. Martha was the kind of mother who never missed a school play or baseball game, who baked cookies for the entire neighborhood, and who taught our son the values of kindness and gratitude. When Martha was diagnosed with aggressive pancreatic cancer 5 years ago, our world shattered. Despite the best treatments money could buy, we lost her just 8 months after diagnosis. The pain of watching my vibrant, loving wife fade away still haunts me. In those final months, Martha worried most about how I would manage alone in our large family home, the 4-bedroom colonial where we had raised Thomas and created 40 years of memories. After Martha passed, I tried to maintain our home as she would have wanted, but the empty rooms echoed with her absence. Every corner held memories that both comforted and tormented me. After 2 years of rattling around in a house built for a family, I made the difficult decision to sell. The market was favorable, and I received $650,000 for the property, a considerable profit on our original investment. My plan was simple: find a smaller, more manageable place where I could enjoy my retirement years. I had a substantial nest egg of $1.2 million in retirement accounts, investments, and savings, so money wasn't a concern. What I hadn't anticipated was the competitive housing market in our area, with properties selling within days of listing, often above asking price. When Thomas heard about my plans, he immediately offered his home as a temporary solution. "Dad, why waste money on rent when you can stay with us while you house hunt?" he said. "The kids would love having Grandpa around, and we have plenty of space." Thomas and his wife Jessica lived in a beautiful 5-bedroom house in an upscale suburb, a home I had helped them purchase years earlier with a down payment of $120,000. It seemed like the perfect arrangement, so I accepted his offer with gratitude. From the beginning, I was determined not to be a burden. I insisted on taking the smallest bedroom, tucked away in the back corner of the house, to give the family their space. I set up a specific time to use the shared bathroom to avoid inconveniencing anyone. I kept my personal belongings neatly contained to my room, displaying only a single photograph of Martha on the nightstand. Thomas and Jessica initially welcomed me warmly. Jessica gave me a tour of their home, showing me where everything was kept in the kitchen and laundry room. Thomas helped carry my suitcases and the few boxes of personal items I had kept. My grandchildren, 10-year-old Lily and 7-year-old Jack, were ecstatic, bombarding me with questions about my engineering career and begging for stories about their father as a child. I was no stranger to generosity when it came to Thomas. Beyond the substantial down payment for his house, I had fully funded his college education, $75,000 at a state university where he earned his marketing degree. I had contributed $35,000 toward his wedding to Jessica, a lavish affair at a country club that Martha had spent months helping to plan. Over the years, I had given regular financial gifts for birthdays, holidays, and special occasions. I had established college funds for both grandchildren and covered the costs of their summer camps and extracurricular activities. Despite my significant financial resources, I never flaunted my wealth or made Thomas feel indebted. I helped because I could, because I wanted him to have opportunities, because that's what parents do. Martha and I had been raised to believe that family takes care of family, a value we had worked hard to instill in Thomas. While living with them, I strove to be an asset rather than a liability. I took over cooking dinner 3 nights a week, preparing Martha's beloved recipes that the family had always enjoyed. I maintained their yard with the same care I had given my own, mowing the lawn weekly and planting seasonal flowers to brighten the property. I picked up the grandchildren from school each afternoon, helping with homework and entertaining them until Thomas and Jessica returned from work. Thomas had built a successful career as a marketing executive for a national retail chain, often working long hours and traveling for business. Jessica worked part-time as a real estate agent, ironically specializing in helping seniors downsize to smaller homes. Their combined income was substantial, though they seemed to spend most of what they earned on luxury cars, designer clothes, and lavish vacations. The first few months of our living arrangement were harmonious. Sunday dinners became a cherished tradition, with all of us gathering around the table to share meals and stories. I delighted in watching Lily and Jack grow, treasuring the opportunity to be present for everyday moments I might have missed living separately. Jessica would occasionally ask my advice about her real estate listings, and Thomas would seek my input on home maintenance issues. I felt valued, included, part of a loving family unit. I continued my search for a new home, working with several real estate agents and viewing numerous properties. Nothing felt quite right, either too expensive, too far from Thomas and the grandchildren, or requiring too many renovations for a man my age to manage alone. I wasn't in a hurry, believing I had the luxury of waiting for the perfect place while enjoying this extended time with my family. In retrospect, I should have recognized the warning signs sooner. But when you love someone, you tend to see what you want to see, to make excuses for behavior that would be unacceptable from anyone else. And so I missed the subtle changes that, looking back, clearly marked the beginning of the end. Around the 4th month of living with Thomas and his family, I began noticing subtle changes in the atmosphere. The shifts were almost imperceptible at first, easy to dismiss as imagination or oversensitivity on my part. Thomas, once eager to hear my stories about my engineering days, would check his watch repeatedly when I spoke. Jessica, who had been warm and solicitous, began finding reasons to be out of the house when I was there, scheduling showings and client meetings during times she knew I would be home. One Tuesday evening, I was reading in my room when I overheard Thomas and Jessica in the hallway, their voices hushed but tense. "It's been 4 months, Tom," Jessica whispered. "When is he moving out? We need our space back." I know, Thomas replied, sounding frustrated. "But every place he looks at has some problem or another. I think he's too comfortable here." I sat frozen, book forgotten in my hands, as their footsteps moved away. Surely I had misunderstood. Surely my son, who I had supported and loved unconditionally for his entire life, wasn't resenting my presence in his home, a home I had helped him obtain. The incidents multiplied after that. At dinner, Thomas would interrupt me mid-sentence, changing the subject as if what I had to say wasn't worth hearing. Jessica forgot to set a place for me at Sunday dinner, apologizing insincerely when I quietly retrieved my own plate and utensils. When I watched my favorite Western films in the evening, Thomas would complain about the volume, even though I kept it deliberately low to avoid disturbing anyone. Jessica began rearranging my belongings without asking. I returned from a doctor's appointment one day to find she had moved my medication from the bathroom counter to a drawer to declutter. When the family discussed summer vacation plans, my input was ignored entirely, though they casually mentioned I would be expected to watch their house and water plants while they were away. Rather than confront them, I redoubled my efforts to be helpful and unobtrusive. I took on more household chores, deep cleaning the kitchen appliances and organizing the garage that had been cluttered for years. I fixed the leaking faucet in the guest bathroom and repainted the peeling trim around the back porch. I started preparing elaborate meals from scratch, hoping to remind them of the value I brought to their home. One evening after dinner, Thomas approached me with a sheet of paper in hand. "Dad," he began, his tone businesslike, "I've been tracking our household expenses, and they've increased significantly since you moved in." He placed the paper before me, an itemized list of utility bills, comparing costs before and after my arrival. The water bill had increased by $23. The electric bill showed a $40 increase. The grocery budget had risen by approximately $100 monthly. "I understand, son," I said carefully, my heart sinking. "I'm happy to pay rent or contribute to the household expenses. You should have just asked." Thomas waved his hand dismissively. "That's not the point, Dad. It's just, well, we didn't exactly plan for this to be a permanent arrangement." "I'm still looking for a place," I assured him. "The market is challenging right now, but I've scheduled 3 viewings for next week." He nodded, but the skepticism in his eyes was unmistakable. "Just don't get too picky, okay? You don't need a perfect place, just something functional." That night, lying awake in bed, I couldn't help comparing Thomas's attitude with how I had treated my own parents. My father had lived with Martha and me for the last 7 years of his life after my mother passed away. Despite his occasional stubbornness and old-fashioned ways, we had welcomed him wholeheartedly, grateful for the opportunity to repay a fraction of what he had given us. I had never once resented his presence or calculated the cost of his care against my own convenience. I remembered how my father had taught Thomas to fish, spending countless patient hours at the lake with his grandson. I remembered my father's woodworking projects, creating treasure boxes and toy cars for Thomas that he had cherished. I remembered the respect Thomas had shown his grandfather then, a respect that apparently hadn't translated to his own father. More unsettling memories surfaced. 3 years ago, shortly after Martha's death, Thomas had approached me about investing in his friend's startup company. I had gently declined, suggesting he use his own savings rather than risking my retirement funds. His disappointment had seemed disproportionate at the time, but I had attributed it to grief over his mother. Now I wondered if his disappointment had more to do with delayed access to my money than concern for a friend's business. Despite these troubling thoughts, I tried to maintain perspective. Thomas was under pressure at work. Jessica was pursuing her real estate license upgrade. The children were involved in multiple activities that kept the family constantly on the move. Perhaps their frustration with my presence was just a manifestation of overall stress, not a fundamental lack of respect or care. With that rationalization, I continued my housing search with renewed determination, hoping to find a suitable place before the subtle tensions escalated into something we couldn't repair. I had no way of knowing that the breaking point was already approaching, that the foundation of our relationship was about to crumble in a way I never could have anticipated. Thomas's 40th birthday arrived on a perfect June evening. I had spent weeks planning my gift, eventually selecting a luxury watch he had admired months earlier in a shopping mall display window. It cost nearly $2,000, a substantial sum even for me, but Thomas was my only son, and I wanted to make his milestone birthday special. I spent the afternoon helping Jessica prepare Thomas's favorite meal: grilled ribeye steaks, twice-baked potatoes, and Caesar salad, just as Martha used to make for his birthdays growing up. I even baked his favorite chocolate cake from scratch, following Martha's recipe card that I had preserved in a plastic sleeve to protect her handwriting from fading. The evening began pleasantly enough. Thomas seemed genuinely touched by the watch, immediately removing his old timepiece to replace it with my gift. The grandchildren had made handmade cards featuring crayon drawings of their father. Jessica gave him tickets to a football game he had been eager to attend. The conversation flowed easily as we enjoyed the meal I had helped prepare. As I stood to clear the dinner plates, preparing to bring out the birthday cake, I remembered I had prepared a special coffee to accompany dessert. Thomas had recently begun collecting expensive imported coffees, displaying the bags prominently on a dedicated shelf in the kitchen. I had noticed one bag marked as his favorite, a rare Jamaican Blue Mountain blend, and decided to prepare it as a special birthday treat. I brewed the coffee with care and brought it to the table, along with the chocolate cake adorned with 40 candles. "I made your favorite coffee," I announced proudly, setting the cups beside each plate. Thomas frowned slightly as he looked at the coffee. "Is that my Blue Mountain Reserve?" "Yes," I replied, still smiling. "I thought it would be perfect for your birthday." His expression darkened. "That coffee costs $60 a pound, Dad. It's not for everyday use." "I know it's special," I said, my smile faltering. "That's why I saved it for your birthday." "You should have asked," Thomas snapped, his voice rising. "You can't just help yourself to whatever you want in this house." The table fell silent. Jessica stared at her plate. The children looked uncomfortable, sensing the sudden tension. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "I was trying to do something nice for your birthday. I didn't realize." "That's the problem, Dad," Thomas interrupted, his voice growing louder. You don't realize a lot of things. You don't realize that you've been here for months with no end in sight. You don't realize how much extra work you create. You don't realize that we had plans and routines before you moved in. I sat stunned, my hands trembling slightly as I placed the cake knife back on the table. Son, No, let me finish, Thomas continued, years of apparently pent-up resentment suddenly pouring out. You need to stop living off me and get your own place. You're a burden here, Dad. A burden. Jessica and I work hard for what we have, and we're tired of supporting you. Jessica remained silent, but her slight nod spoke volumes. She agreed with him. But I've offered to pay expenses, I protested weakly. It's not about money, Thomas shouted, slamming his hand on the table, causing the silverware to jump. It's about space, about privacy, about living our lives without having to consider you in every decision. You're retired with nothing to do but get in our way. If you can't find a place soon, maybe you should get a job instead of sitting around all day. Otherwise, you need to move out. I mean it, Dad. This situation isn't working anymore. Lily, my sweet granddaughter, began to cry silently, tears sliding down her cheeks. Jack looked between his father and me, confusion written across his small face. The birthday candles continued to burn, wax dripping onto the carefully frosted cake, the tiny flames reflecting in Lily's tears. I felt as if all the air had been sucked from the room. The words burden and living off me echoed in my mind, a cruel distortion of reality that somehow, in my son's perception, had become truth. In that moment, I saw not the little boy I had raised, taught to ride a bike, helped with homework, and supported through every challenge, but a stranger wearing my son's face, speaking words that cut deeper than any physical wound could have. Without saying another word, I stood up slowly and walked out of the dining room. My legs felt wooden, my chest tight with a pain I couldn't describe. I made my way to my bedroom, closed the door quietly behind me, and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. On the nightstand stood the photograph of Martha, her kind eyes seeming to look directly at me. What would she make of our son now? The boy she had defended when he broke the neighbor's window with a baseball. The teenager she had comforted when his first girlfriend broke his heart. The young man she had prepared for adult life with such care and love. I opened the drawer and pulled out an old leather album. Inside were photographs documenting Thomas's life from infancy through adulthood, his first steps, his kindergarten graduation, his high school prom, his college commencement, his wedding day. In every image, Martha and I flanked him, our faces radiant with pride and love. I lingered on a particular photo taken on Thomas's 16th birthday. We had surprised him with his first car, a used but reliable sedan. The expression on his face was pure joy as I handed him the keys. Martha had captured the moment perfectly, a testament to the lengths we had gone to give our son not just material things, but a sense of being cherished. Sleep eluded me that night. I lay awake replaying Thomas's words, searching for what I might have done to deserve such contempt. Had I been too intrusive? Had I overstepped boundaries I hadn't recognized? Was there truth in his accusation that I was a burden? As dawn broke, I made a decision. Before confronting Thomas, before deciding my next steps, I needed to understand what was truly driving his behavior. Something didn't add up between his claims of financial strain and the lifestyle I observed. It was time to investigate what my son wasn't telling me. The morning after Thomas's outburst, I waited until the house emptied. Thomas left for work with barely a grunt in my direction. Jessica hustled the children off to school, avoiding eye contact entirely. When the door closed behind them, I sat alone in the silent kitchen, nursing a cup of coffee and contemplating my next move. If Thomas was truly struggling financially because of my presence, as he had implied, I needed to understand the extent of the problem. The family computer sat in the corner of the kitchen, used primarily for online shopping and managing household accounts. Thomas had given me the password months ago, so I could check my email. I had never abused this trust by prying, but now I felt justified in looking deeper. I navigated to their online banking portal, which Thomas had carelessly left logged in. The account balances immediately contradicted any notion of financial strain. Their checking account held over $20,000. Their savings account showed a healthy balance of nearly $50,000. Monthly deposits far exceeded withdrawals. More revealing than the balances were the recent transactions. Just 2 weeks before Thomas had complained about increased utility bills, he had spent $15,000 on a family vacation to the Bahamas, a trip they had taken while I watched their house. 3 months ago, there was a $45,000 payment to a local boat dealer for a new fishing boat Thomas had never mentioned. Most damning of all, I found emails detailing plans for an $80,000 home renovation project, scheduled to begin next month, focusing on a kitchen remodel and expanded master bathroom. These were not the financial decisions of someone struggling to support an aging parent. These were the choices of someone with abundant disposable income, someone who simply didn't want to share their space. I closed the computer and sat back, a strange calm replacing my initial hurt. This wasn't about money or burden. This was about Thomas's character, about values I had apparently failed to instill despite my best efforts. Later that day, I met my longtime friend Michael for lunch at a quiet diner downtown. Michael and I had worked together for 30 years at the engineering firm, and he knew my family well. "I'm not entirely surprised," Michael said, after I recounted the previous night's events. "Last year at the company picnic, Thomas was talking about your retirement savings. He mentioned to my son how he was looking forward to his inheritance, said something about finally being able to buy a vacation home in Aspen when the time came. I nearly choked on my coffee. He said that? About my money?" Michael nodded grimly. "I didn't tell you because I thought I might have misunderstood or that he was joking. But after what you've just told me, I'm thinking he was serious." "I never raised him to think that way," I said, shame washing over me. "Martha would be heartbroken." "It's not your fault, Claude," Michael assured me. "Some people just develop different values as adults, no matter how they were raised. The question is, what are you going to do now?" What indeed? I couldn't continue living under Thomas's roof, not after his true feelings had been revealed so brutally. I couldn't unhear his words or unsee the contempt in his eyes. "You can stay with Janet and me while you figure things out," Michael offered. "We have plenty of space, and we'd enjoy the company." I thanked him but declined. This was a crossroads that required complete independence, a clean break to reassess not just my living situation but the entire relationship with my son. The following morning, I called Barbara Wilson, an attorney who had helped Martha and me prepare our original wills years earlier. She agreed to see me that afternoon. Her office was, as I remembered, elegant but unpretentious, filled with family photographs and law books. "Claude," she greeted me warmly. "It's been too long. How can I help you today?" I explained the situation with Thomas, forcing myself to maintain composure as I recounted his cruel words and my subsequent discoveries. Barbara listened attentively, her expression growing increasingly troubled. "I'm so sorry you're experiencing this," she said when I finished. "Unfortunately, I see this type of situation more often than you might think. Adult children sometimes develop expectations about inheritance that distort their relationship with parents. I want to rewrite my will," I told her firmly. "My current will leaves nearly everything to Thomas, with small provisions for my grandchildren's education." That was appropriate when Martha and I believed Thomas shared our values. I no longer believe that's the case. "I understand," Barbara nodded. "Let's review your assets so I can prepare a new document that reflects your current wishes." We spent the next hour cataloging my financial holdings. My primary investment account contained $850,000, carefully grown over decades of disciplined saving. My secondary retirement accounts held another $350,000. My life insurance policy was worth $500,000. Various collectibles and personal property added approximately $100,000 more to my estate. "Here's what I want to do," I said after we had documented everything. 50% should go to cancer research organizations in Martha's memory. She would have wanted that. Barbara made notes as I continued. 30% should be placed in trust for my grandchildren's education, accessible only for tuition and related expenses, with release ages of 25, 30, and 35 for the remaining funds. "Very prudent," Barbara commented. 15% to my sister Anne in Arizona. She's had health problems recently, and this would ease her burden. She's the only family member who has consistently stayed in touch since Martha passed. "And Thomas?" Barbara asked gently. I sighed. 5% to Thomas. Enough to acknowledge him as my son, but not enough to fulfill whatever fantasies he's created about his inheritance. Barbara finished her notes and looked up at me. "Are you certain about this distribution, Claude?" Changing a will is a significant decision, especially when it involves substantially reducing a child's inheritance. I thought of Thomas's cruel words, of the Bahamas vacation and new boat, while he complained about my coffee consumption, of his comments to Michael about anticipating my death for financial gain. "I'm certain," I replied. "This isn't about punishing Thomas. It's about aligning my legacy with my values." Thomas has received significant financial support throughout his life. He has a successful career, a beautiful home, and every advantage I could provide. The grandchildren's future is secured through their trusts. The remaining funds should go where they'll do the most good. As I left Barbara's office, I felt a weight simultaneously lift from my shoulders and settle in my heart. I had taken control of my situation, but at what cost to my relationship with my only son? That evening, I began searching online for apartments. Within 2 days, I found a modest but pleasant one-bedroom unit in a senior living community about 20 minutes from Thomas's home, close enough to maintain a relationship with my grandchildren, but far enough to establish my independence. The landlord, sympathetic to my situation, expedited the application process. By the end of the week, I had signed a lease and paid the security deposit. I arranged for a small moving company to transfer my belongings from Thomas's house the following Monday, timing it for when the entire family would be out of the house. As I packed my limited possessions, I reflected on parental love and its boundaries. I had always believed a parent's love should be unconditional, a principle I had followed with Thomas his entire life. But respect, I realized, was a necessary companion to love. Without it, love became exploitation, a resource to be mined rather than a bond to be cherished. Martha would have been devastated by this turn of events, but I believed she would have understood my decision. She had been unfailingly kind, but never a doormat. She had taught Thomas about consequences, along with compassion. Somewhere along the way, he had forgotten those lessons. Perhaps this would remind him. On Monday morning, after Thomas left for work, Jessica departed for her real estate office, and the children boarded their school bus. I supervised the movers as they loaded my belongings into their truck. It took less than 2 hours to remove all traces of my presence from the house where I had lived for the past 5 months. Before leaving, I placed a handwritten letter on the kitchen counter, secured beneath the fruit bowl where Thomas would be sure to find it. "Dear Thomas," I had written, "by the time you read this, I will have moved out. Your words on your birthday made it clear that my presence in your home has become unwelcome. While the manner of your expression hurt deeply, I respect your right to your space and privacy. I have found an apartment and will be living independently, as you suggested. I am not sharing my new address at this time, as I need some distance to heal and reflect. You can reach me on my cell phone if necessary. I want you to know that despite recent events, I love you. You are my son, and nothing can change that fundamental fact. However, love does not preclude disappointment, and I am profoundly disappointed by your characterization of me as a burden and someone living off you, particularly given the financial support I have provided throughout your life. I have also made changes to my will that reflect my current values and priorities. This is not intended as punishment, but as a realignment of my legacy with the causes and people who have shown consistent care and respect. I hope to maintain a relationship with Lily and Jack, as they are innocent in this situation. We can discuss arrangements for visits once I am settled. Take care of yourself and your family. Dad." I took one last look around the house before closing the door behind me, uncertain when or if I would return. 3 days passed in the quiet solitude of my new apartment. I busied myself arranging furniture, hanging the few pictures I had brought, and establishing a new routine. The senior community offered activities and common spaces, but I wasn't ready for socialization. I needed time to process the seismic shift in my family relationships. On the 4th day, the calls began. The first came at 9:15 in the morning, Thomas's name flashing on my phone screen. I let it go to voicemail, not yet prepared to hear his voice. His message was terse. "Dad, we need to talk. Call me back." By noon, he had called 5 more times, each message increasingly urgent. By evening, the count was up to 15 calls, his voice progressing from demanding to concerned to something approaching panic. "Dad, I found your letter. We need to discuss this like adults." "Dad, you can't just disappear like this. It's not right. Dad, Jessica and I are worried about you. Are you okay? Dad, please call me back. This is getting ridiculous. Dad, what did you mean about changes to your will? What have you done? That last message revealed his true priority, and it wasn't my well-being. The following morning brought a new barrage of calls, now interspersed with text messages. The family attorney called me. Is it true you've cut me out of your will? After everything I've done for you? This is extremely unfair, Dad. You're acting out of emotion without thinking clearly. The kids are asking where Grandpa went. What am I supposed to tell them? By the end of the second day, Thomas had called 40 times. I had not answered once, nor responded to his texts. I needed the space to process my emotions without his manipulation clouding my judgment. On the third day, Thomas began contacting my friends, former colleagues, and even distant relatives, claiming concern for my mental state. Michael called to warn me. He showed up at our door last night, Claude, Michael reported. Said he was worried you might be having cognitive issues, making irrational decisions. Janet and I didn't tell him anything, but he seemed desperate to find you. Did he mention the will? I asked, already knowing the answer. That's all he talked about once we made it clear we wouldn't reveal your location. He said you were being influenced by someone, that you weren't thinking clearly, that he needed to protect your assets from undue influence. It was quite a performance. Thomas's desperation escalated when his attempts to locate me through friends failed. He began leaving voicemails claiming he would report me as a missing person, though he knew perfectly well I wasn't missing, just unwilling to speak with him. Jessica joined the campaign, sending texts that oscillated between guilt trips and accusations. How could you abandon your family like this? After all we did for you? Thomas is devastated. He made one mistake and you're punishing him like this? You're being selfish and vindictive. This isn't the father-in-law I thought I knew. I saved every message but responded to none. Each one confirmed that my decision had been correct, revealing the transactional nature of their purported care for me. Throughout this tumultuous period, I maintained contact with my grandchildren through carefully arranged means. I sent Lily and Jack cards with my phone number, suggesting they call after school if they wanted to chat. To my relief, they did. Their innocent voices a balm to my wounded heart. I established a routine of weekend outings with them. I would meet them at public locations, neutral ground where Thomas and Jessica were less likely to create a scene. We visited museums, enjoyed lunches at child-friendly restaurants, and spent hours in bookstores selecting new reading material for their growing collections. During these visits, I was careful never to speak negatively about their parents. When Lily asked why I had moved out, I simply explained that adults sometimes need their own space, just as she valued privacy in her room. Jack worried that I was angry at his dad, and I assured him that families sometimes have disagreements, but that didn't mean they stopped loving each other. Thomas, meanwhile, had begun spreading a narrative among family, friends, and relatives that I was confused, possibly suffering early dementia, and being influenced by unspecified bad actors who wanted access to my money. These allegations were particularly ironic, given his own apparent interest in my finances. After 3 weeks of unanswered calls and texts, Thomas changed tactics. A message arrived, proposing a reconciliation dinner, just the two of us, at my choice of restaurant. Dad, he wrote, I know I spoke harshly. I was stressed and said things I didn't mean. Can we please talk in person? I miss you, and the kids miss having you around. Name the time and place, and I'll be there. The message contained no acknowledgement of the deeper issues, no recognition of the years of support I had provided, no apology for the cruel characterization of me as a burden. It was a surface-level attempt at reconciliation, without addressing the fundamental breach of trust and respect. I considered ignoring this message as I had the others, but something in me knew this confrontation was necessary, not just for closure but for truth. If there was to be any future relationship between us, it would have to be built on honesty, not manipulation and unspoken expectations. I replied with a single line. Giovanni's restaurant, Thursday at 7. I'll make the reservation. His response was immediate. I'll be there. Thank you, Dad. I selected Giovanni's carefully, a moderately priced Italian restaurant on neutral ground, public enough to discourage an emotional scene but private enough for an honest conversation. As I prepared for this meeting, I couldn't help wondering if any relationship could be salvaged from the wreckage of trust Thomas had created, or if this dinner would simply mark the formal end of the father-son bond I had cherished for 40 years. Giovanni's restaurant hummed with the gentle murmur of dinner conversations and the soft clink of silverware against china. I arrived 15 minutes early, requesting a corner table that offered both privacy and a clear view of the entrance. The maitre d', sensing my tension, placed a glass of water and a basket of bread before me, with a sympathetic smile. At precisely 7 o'clock, Thomas walked through the door. He had dressed for the occasion in a business suit, his hair freshly cut, wearing the watch I had given him on that fateful birthday. His eyes scanned the restaurant until they found me, and his expression shifted into what I recognized as his client-meeting face, polite but guarded. "Dad," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "You're looking well." "Thank you for coming, Thomas," I replied, determined to maintain composure. "I noticed Jessica isn't with you." A flicker of something crossed his face. "She thought it would be better if we spoke one-on-one first." Father to son. I nodded, suspecting Jessica's absence had more to do with strategy than sensitivity. The waiter approached, and we ordered our meals, Thomas selecting the most expensive steak on the menu while I chose a simple pasta dish. When the waiter departed, an awkward silence fell between us. Thomas broke it first. "Dad, I want to apologize for what happened. I was under a lot of pressure at work, and I took it out on you. The things I said, they came out all wrong." His words were practiced, his tone placating but not genuinely remorseful. I had heard this same voice when he was 17 and had taken my car without permission, when he was trying to minimize a transgression rather than truly understand its impact. "What exactly came out wrong, Thomas?" I asked quietly. "The part where you called me a burden, or the part where you told me to get a job or move out of your house?" He flinched slightly. "All of it, Dad. I was just frustrated. You know I don't really think of you as a burden." "Do I know that?" I maintained steady eye contact. "Because your behavior before and since suggests otherwise." Thomas leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Look, Dad, we both said things in the heat of the moment. Can't we just put this behind us? The kids miss you terribly. The house feels empty without you." "I see the children regularly," I replied. "They're adjusting well. But this isn't about them, is it? It's about the changes to my will that you mentioned in your messages." His expression shifted subtly, a tightening around the eyes that confirmed my suspicion. "The family attorney called me," he said cautiously. "He mentioned you'd made some adjustments. I was concerned, given the timing. It seemed reactive." "It was a deliberate decision, Thomas, not a reaction. I've realigned my estate to better reflect my values and priorities." "What does that mean, exactly?" His client-meeting facade was slipping, revealing the anxiety beneath. "It means I've decided to leave 50% of my estate to cancer research in your mother's memory. 30% will be held in trust for Lily and Jack's education and future needs. 15% will go to your Aunt Anne to help with her medical expenses." I paused, watching as he calculated mentally, his banker's son doing the math. "And the remaining 5%? He asked, his voice strained. "That goes to you, Thomas." His facade crumbled entirely, color rising in his cheeks. 5%? 5? After everything I've done for you? Taking you in when you had nowhere to go? That's how you repay me? There it was, the truth beneath the performance of concerned son. I remained calm as our food arrived, thanking the waiter who, sensing tension, quickly retreated. "Thomas," I said after taking a sip of water, "let's be honest with each other, perhaps for the first time in years. You didn't take me in out of the goodness of your heart. You took me in expecting eventual compensation through inheritance, viewing my presence as an investment rather than an act of filial care." "That's not true," he protested, but his eyes slid away from mine. "Isn't it? Then explain the Bahamas vacation you took 2 weeks before complaining about increased utility bills. Explain the new $45,000 boat you purchased while claiming financial strain. Explain the $80,000 home renovation you're planning while telling me to get a job because I'm such a burden." His eyes widened. "You went through our financial records? You had no right." "I had every right to understand the truth of a situation that directly affected me," I countered. "Just as I had a right to know that you've been discussing my inheritance with others, planning what you'll do with my money while I'm still very much alive." "Who told you that?" he demanded. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that it's true, isn't it?" He didn't deny it, instead shifting tactics. "Dad, you're not thinking clearly about this. You're angry, and you're making decisions that you'll regret later." I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years, I replied. Thomas, do you have any idea how much financial support I've given you throughout your life? Before he could answer, I continued, I paid $75,000 for your college education. I contributed $120,000 toward the down payment on your house. I gave $35,000 for your wedding. I've provided countless gifts, loans that were never repaid, and financial bailouts when you overextended yourself. I removed a folded paper from my pocket, a document I had prepared with Barbara's help. The total, accounting for inflation, exceeds $250,000. That doesn't include the emotional support, childcare, household maintenance, and countless other non-financial contributions. Thomas stared at the itemized list, his expression moving from disbelief to discomfort as the evidence of his lifelong dependency confronted him. I didn't keep track of these things to hold them over your head, I explained. Parents support their children out of love, not expectation of repayment. But when you accuse me of living off you, after a lifetime of generosity on my part, it forces me to reconsider our entire relationship. So, this is punishment, he said bitterly. You're using your money to control me. No, Thomas. This is clarity. I'm using my resources to support causes and people who have shown consistent respect and care. Your mother would have approved of the cancer research funding. Your children will benefit from their education trusts. Anne has been a faithful sister and deserves support in her illness. And you, despite everything, are still my son, which is why you receive anything at all. Thomas pushed his barely touched steak aside, appetite apparently gone. What do you want from me, Dad? An apology? Fine, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said those things. Now, can we please fix this mess? What I want, I said carefully, is a relationship based on mutual respect, not financial expectation. I want to be valued as your father, not tolerated as a future payday. I want honesty between us, even when it's uncomfortable. And if I agree to that, will you change the will back? He asked immediately, revealing his continued focus on money rather than relationship. I shook my head slowly. The will stands as it is. Any future changes will depend on genuine transformation in our relationship over time, not on promises made in a restaurant to secure financial advantage. For the first time, Thomas seemed to realize the depth of the situation. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the facade that revealed not just disappointment over lost money, but perhaps a glimmer of recognition about what he had destroyed. I don't know how to fix this, he admitted, his voice smaller than I had heard it since he was a child. Neither do I acknowledged. But if we're going to try, it needs to begin with complete honesty. No more manipulation, no more hidden agendas. What would that even look like? He asked. For a start, family counseling, I suggested. A neutral third party who can help us communicate about difficult topics without reverting to old patterns. Thomas's immediate reaction was negative. Therapy? Dad, we don't need that. We can work this out ourselves. Can we? Because our track record suggests otherwise. This rift didn't develop overnight, Thomas. It's the result of years of unspoken expectations and resentments. Professional guidance isn't weakness, it's wisdom. He stared at his water glass, turning it slowly between his fingers. I'll think about it, he finally said. It wasn't agreement, but it wasn't outright rejection either. A small opening, perhaps, in a door that had seemed permanently closed. In the meantime, I continued, I'm maintaining my independent living arrangement. I'll continue seeing Lily and Jack regularly, and I'm open to gradually rebuilding our relationship, but only on terms of mutual respect. Thomas nodded slowly. And the will? Is not open for further discussion tonight, I stated firmly. Focus on repairing our relationship, not on what you might receive after I'm gone. We finished our meal in relative silence, the weight of unresolved issues hanging between us. As we prepared to leave, Thomas hesitated, then asked, Can I at least have your address? In case of emergency? I considered his request, weighing trust against self-protection. Not yet, I decided. But soon, perhaps, if we make progress. In the restaurant parking lot, we parted with an awkward handshake rather than the hug that would have once been natural. It was a businesslike conclusion to a conversation that had been more negotiation than reconciliation, yet it represented a first step away from complete estrangement. As I drove back to my apartment, I felt neither triumph nor defeat, just a somber recognition of how much damage had been done and how uncertain the path to repair remained. Thomas had not transformed in a single dinner conversation, but perhaps a seed of awareness had been planted. Whether it would grow into genuine change or wither under the weight of entrenched attitudes remained to be seen. 6 months passed in my new life. My apartment, initially a sterile refuge, gradually transformed into a true home. I hung photographs on walls painted in colors of my choosing. I arranged furniture to suit my preferences rather than fitting into someone else's space. I established routines that revolved around my own natural rhythms rather than accommodating others' schedules. My modest one-bedroom unit was on the second floor of a 3-story building, in a community designed for active seniors. From my small balcony, I could watch the sunrise over a shared garden where residents tended flowers and vegetables in communal plots. The living room comfortably held Martha's reading chair, my recliner, and a small dining table. The kitchen was compact but functional, perfect for preparing simple meals for myself and occasional dishes for potluck gatherings in the community room. Each morning began with coffee on the balcony, watching birds at the feeders I had installed. Afternoons often found me volunteering at the local hospital, where I helped guide patients and visitors through the labyrinthine corridors, a small service that brought unexpected fulfillment. Tuesday evenings belonged to a fishing club that met at a nearby lake, where I found camaraderie with men who shared stories rather than seeking advantages. My relationship with Lily and Jack blossomed in our scheduled weekend visits. Free from the tension that had permeated Thomas's home, we enjoyed genuine connection. Lily shared her developing interest in science, reminding me of Martha's curiosity about the natural world. Jack revealed a talent for drawing, proudly presenting me with sketches that I displayed prominently on my refrigerator. Thomas remained a complicated presence in my life. After our restaurant confrontation, he maintained sporadic contact through carefully worded text messages, neither hostile nor warm. He declined my suggestion of family counseling for the first 3 months, then unexpectedly agreed after what I later learned was a heated argument with Jessica about financial priorities. Our first counseling session was awkward and guarded, with Thomas presenting a sanitized version of events to the therapist, Dr. Eleanor Patel, a woman in her 50s with a direct but compassionate approach. "I think we had a misunderstanding," Thomas explained, minimizing the conflict. "Dad took some things I said the wrong way. Is that how you remember it, Claude?" Dr. Patel asked, turning to me. "No," I replied honestly. "Thomas told me I was a burden, that I was living off him, and that I should get a job or move out." There was no ambiguity to misinterpret. Thomas shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "I was stressed about work. I didn't mean it the way it sounded." "Perhaps," Dr. Patel suggested, "we should focus less on intent and more on impact. Regardless of what you meant, Thomas, how do you think your words affected your father?" That question began a gradual unraveling of the narrative Thomas had constructed, both for himself and others, about our conflict. Over subsequent sessions, layers of justification slowly peeled away, revealing the core issues. Thomas's sense of entitlement to my assets, his resentment of my presence despite his initial invitation, and his fundamental misunderstanding of the parent-child relationship. Progress came in small increments. After our 4th session, Thomas sent a handwritten letter, the first genuine communication since our rift. "Dad," he wrote, "I've been thinking about what Dr. Patel said about recognizing impact rather than defending intent. The truth is, no matter how stressed I was, what I said to you was cruel and untrue. You were never a burden. I was focused on my own convenience and forgot the lifetime of support you've given me. I'm truly sorry, not just for what I said, but for how I've treated you for years. I don't expect this apology to fix everything, but I hope it might be a start." The letter wasn't perfect, but it represented something I hadn't seen from Thomas in years: reflection and accountability. Around the same time, I began forming new friendships within my senior community. Arthur and Louise Bennett, a couple in their 70s who lived 1 floor below me, invited me to their weekly dinner gatherings. Walter Santiago, a retired history teacher, discovered our shared interest in historical documentaries, leading to regular viewing evenings with spirited discussions afterwards. Sarah Prentice, a widow my age with a wicked sense of humor, often joined me for morning coffee on the balcony. These connections reminded me that family relationships, while precious, weren't the only source of meaningful human connection. Martha had been my world for so long, and after her death, I had transferred all my emotional investment to Thomas and his family. This new community taught me the value of diversifying emotional bonds, of building a support network that didn't depend entirely on any single relationship. As months passed, Thomas began making small but significant gestures. He started bringing the children for visits to my apartment rather than waiting for me to arrange outings. He consulted me about a work challenge, genuinely seeking my perspective rather than validation. He helped install bookshelves in my living room without being asked, spending a Saturday afternoon carefully measuring and drilling. Jessica remained distant, occasionally accompanying Thomas and the children but never initiating contact herself. I accepted this limitation, understanding that some relationships might never fully heal. By Thanksgiving, 6 months after our separation, Thomas invited me to dinner at their home. I accepted with cautious optimism, bringing a homemade apple pie using Martha's recipe and a small gift for each grandchild. The evening wasn't perfect. Conversations occasionally stalled. Old tensions surfaced in subtle ways. But there was also genuine laughter, moments of connection, and an undercurrent of effort on both sides. Thomas had removed the chair from the dining room table where the confrontation had occurred, replacing it with one from another set, a small but thoughtful attempt to create a fresh start. After dinner, while Jessica supervised the children's bath time, Thomas and I sat on the back porch with cups of coffee, his from a regular blend rather than the expensive imported variety that had sparked our conflict. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Thomas said, staring into his cup. "About money, about family, about what really matters." I waited, giving him space to continue at his own pace. "When I was growing up, you and Mom made everything seem effortless. The house, the vacations, my college fund. I never saw the sacrifices, the careful planning, the years of disciplined saving. I just assumed that's how life worked, that comfort and security were givens rather than achievements." He looked up at me, his expression more open than I had seen it in years. "I've been chasing status symbols, thinking they'd bring the satisfaction I remembered from childhood. But that feeling didn't come from things, did it? It came from knowing I was unconditionally loved, from the stability you and Mom created. That's what we wanted for you," I acknowledged. "Security, opportunity, love, not material things for their own sake." "I lost sight of that," Thomas admitted. "Somewhere between business school and keeping up with my colleagues, I started measuring success in possessions rather than relationships. And when you needed support, I saw it as a threat to my lifestyle, rather than an opportunity to return a fraction of what you'd given me." The conversation wasn't a complete resolution. Thomas didn't suddenly transform into the son I had hoped he would be. The damage to our relationship couldn't be repaired in a single evening. But it represented a genuine beginning, a foundation on which we might gradually rebuild trust and respect. As winter approached, I maintained my independence, while cautiously allowing more connection with Thomas and his family. The will remained unchanged, a boundary I maintained, not out of spite, but as a reflection of my values and a safeguard against reverting to old patterns. The greatest lesson of this painful chapter came unexpectedly during a conversation with my friend Sarah as we watched snow falling outside my apartment window. "You know what I've learned in 70 years?" she mused. "Standing up for yourself doesn't get easier with age, but it gets more necessary. When we're young, we have time to recover from letting people take advantage. At our age, we don't have that luxury." Her words crystallized what this journey had taught me. Self-respect isn't selfish. Boundaries aren't barriers to love, but foundations for healthy relationships. The true test of family bonds isn't unwavering tolerance of mistreatment, but the courage to require mutual respect, even when doing so causes temporary pain. I don't know what the future holds for Thomas and me. Relationships evolve, sometimes healing, sometimes not. What I do know is that I've found peace in standing firmly for my dignity, in aligning my resources with my values, and in building a life rich with purpose and connection on my own terms. If there's wisdom I can offer from this experience, it's this. It's never too late to require respect. It's never too late to establish boundaries. It's never too late to build a life that honors your worth. And sometimes, the most loving thing we can do for those who take us for granted is to step away until they recognize what they've lost. What would you do if someone you loved and supported for decades suddenly treated you as a burden? Would you have the courage to walk away and stand up for yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they deserve respect at any age. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, true family is built on love and respect, not obligation or financial expectation.